And he is just one of the people that if you want to know how to design good software and good architecture that you want to listen to. Would highly recommend. Happy to have him here.
Does he know where to stand?
Do I have to stand somewhere?
Just behind the table.
I really like to move around, Mark.
Well, there's all that space
all the
right
space.
there behind the table.
I feel like I'm handicapped right here at step one. All right. Sorry, remote friends. All right. Thank you, Drake, and thank you, everybody, for having me. Let's go into just really quick what we're talking about today. We're talking about building digital assistants with Azure AI Services. So, quick check of the audience. How many of you have heard of AI?
The movie?
Yes, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah, okay, cool. How many of you have built applications using artificial intelligence, machine learning, or AI? All right, let's take it one final step further. How many of you have built what you would consider a digital assistant, right? An object that goes out, okay? So tell me what you built, man.
I built the Bat computer.
The Bat computer.
And a digital version of my dog.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool, yeah.
One of the, I would say first, Discord bots that leverage the ChatGPT like 3.5's API.
Awesome, awesome. We'll talk a little bit about ChatGPT 3.5. I guess it was rather recent then, yeah?
Relatively.
Okay. All right, cool. So a little bit about who I am and what I do. I am Global Director for Application Innovation at Nudesic. We are the IBM footprint, we are the Microsoft Azure footprint at IBM. We specialize in all things Microsoft, primarily Azure. Right? So I'm also a part-time professor at The Ohio State University, and I really enjoy just talking about technology and meeting people and doing things and those types of things. So that's how I spend my time. All right, so getting into what we're talking about today, we're going to talk a little bit about chatbots. That's where we're going to start. Then we're going to talk about the arrival of ChatGPT 3.5. Then we're going to talk about the Azure OpenAI service and how that's meaningful. We're going to take a quick look at Copilot Studio, and we're going to look at Azure AI Studio, and then we're going to look at SDKs, Semantic Kernel, and Autogen. Right, so how many of you got an Azure OpenAI instance up and running in your Azure tenant? Anybody? 2, 3? All right. Using Copilot Studio? Right, 1. All right. So we'll take a look at that tonight, and we'll talk about why some of these services might map better to what you're talking about than maybe some other things you might want to do. These move from order of cost, complexity, and customization as we go down. Right. So chatbots, fairly low cost, not highly customizable, and fairly easy to build. And as we get down here to the very bottom, we're talking very low level, almost on the iron type of capabilities as we move down. So I keep hitting the wrong button. All right, so chatbots and the bot framework. This is where Microsoft kind of entered the whole entry point of building chatbots. They came out with an SDK. They backed it with a number of Azure services back in 2016. It's evolved significantly since that 2016 launch as we get to version 4, which is where we are now. It supports things like AI. It started off with things like Q&A Maker. It was almost more of an if-then loop on steroids, as it were, right? But a lot more capabilities today, but this is kind of where we got in, where we got started on building chatbots in the Microsoft ecosystem. We're kind of past this phase collectively as in industry right now, but it's important to understand where we started. Right? From there, we went to chatbots, and powered by the Power App platform, Power Virtual Assistants, more of a low-code, no-code sort of solution. They were trying to target citizen developers and what they call fusion teams, which is what we see here. These fusion teams are mixes of business professionals, IT admins, semi-coders, pro developers, and those types of things. They're all working together to build this hyper chatbot on steroids kind of experience. They work with Power Virtual Agents, and they work with the Azure Bot Service for the lower level things. So high level, drawing pictures, low code, no code. Azure Bot Service when you really need to get underneath the hood of things and really do some customizable things, right? So this went from about 2021 to 2023. Near the end of 2023, some things started to phase out. Okay. Any questions so far? Right. Anybody build anything on the chatbot SDK or Power Virtual Agent? Yeah, you did?
Yep.
Yeah. Good experience?
It was interesting. I was doing a lot with Microsoft Bot Framework. Like, this is really cool. And then ChatGPT came out. I was like, Oh.
It's almost like I have a plant sitting in the front row, because that's where, I swear I didn't rehearse that. Matt, thank you so much. Right, and so I generated this piece of art asking DALL-E to celebrate the triumphant debut of ChatGPT in the mode of Da Vinci. Right, so this is what we got here. Still kind of struggles with doing things like 3.5. I mean, if anybody can read this sign, please call me. I know it's April 20th, and that might be why you can read that sign. Right? So November 30th, 2022, and I know we spent pretty much most of December and a good part of January just trying to figure out how does this whole prompt engineering thing work? How can we do prompt injection and hack it and make it do things that we want to, they wouldn't want us to do, but we would want it to do. What are the business implications of these things? But while it's still sitting on OpenAI's tenant, it was still very limited for a number of reasons. Right? For one, they had a pretty restrictive licensing program where if you upload your company data, they potentially could train their model on that company data. That left a lot of people pause. We had a policy inside our organization, hey, thou shalt not put any customer data or any company data on OpenAI's ChatGPT instance. But do go out and look at it. Do go out and hack on it, right? And so we spent a lot of time doing that. Very shortly after that, Microsoft launched GitHub's Copilot. So we started installing that and hacking around on that one. Drake gave a great talk about that a few months ago. Maybe sometime we'll get that talk dusted off, and things have changed a bit since then. Love to hear that evolve, right? But so as we start to look at building things on ChatGPT, let me back up a step. I got ahead of myself. We start to build these applications on ChatGPT, and we need to have our own private instance. We wanted data protection. We wanted to be able to connect our data to the thing. We needed to evolve. So Microsoft came out with the Azure OpenAI instance very quickly thereafter. So how many know the relationship between OpenAI and Microsoft? What's the relationship? Yes?
So I believe currently Microsoft owns, what is it, like a 49% stake in OpenAI? So almost a majority ownership stake?
Enough of a controlling influence so when the CEO gets fired, they can bring him back, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Boy, that was a fun day.
Fun weekend.
Yeah. Nothing like getting fired on a Saturday, right? So, yeah. So, anyway, we needed a better, more industry solution. A good chunk of the training data that ChatGPT 3.5 developed, it was ran on the Microsoft data center, in the Microsoft data centers on their compute clusters, and they had the inside track on. I'm really struggling with this remote. They had the inside track on being able to run Azure OpenAI or OpenAI inside Azure. So there is no GCP instance, there is no AWS instance. Also, the funny thing about OpenAI is it's no longer open, it's extremely closed. Yes. So let's take a quick look at Azure OpenAI. I'm going to just jump into the portal real quick. This is an Azure OpenAI resource running inside Azure. At the very front overview, you have a couple different things. Hey, do you want to set up monitoring for your OpenAI workloads? Do you want to track usage and tokens and those kind of things? Those are things you don't necessarily get out of the box on OpenAI ChatGPT, right? So you get a little more industry and enterprise experience here. There's some developer toolkit. The thing I wanted to show us real quick was this Azure OpenAI Studio, right? So this gives us the ability to come into this entry point. We can start building applications and configuring our current applications to run on Azure OpenAI, okay? We have a couple different things we can do. We can bring our own data. That's something we can't easily do inside OpenAI. We might not feel comfortable about the privacy policies. We might want to have more control over things. More importantly, I might have a whole bunch of proprietary application data already sitting in my enterprise. So this allows me to hook up to blob storage or Cosmos or Elasticsearch or an internal URL or upload files or a number of other data sources. So now I can enrich this particular generative AI experience with my own custom data. Does anybody know what that's called when you take your custom data and you enrich it with generative AI? Yes?
Well, it depends on how you're doing it, but like in context learning is an obvious one. I would say few-shot prompting if you organize it in a way where you're giving examples, but probably in context learning.
Retrieval augmented generation.
Or RAG, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. What'd you have?
Fine tuning.
Fine tuning is a little bit different than this. Fine tuning goes into this, but the idea of augmenting our data is exactly what Drake said. It is RAG pattern or retrieval augmented generation. So I'm taking customers, or I'm taking internal specific data, and I'm enriching that with Gen AI, and I'm getting it to spit results out for me. When I do that, I have, first of all, I'm getting access to the data I care about, my internal records, my internal data, my internal users. More importantly is I'm reducing the idea of hallucination, and I'm getting more domain-specific results in my Gen AI. So Gen AI does not do domain-specific knowledge extremely well, okay? We're going to come back to that idea that it doesn't do domain knowledge extremely well, right? So I can add my own custom data. I have now more control over what I'm doing with my generative AI responses. I can come in and set up mock completions in this playground. I'm not going to demo this. You guys should know how most of this works, but I type in a question, it's going to give me a response back. The other interesting part is I now can control what models I deploy in my instance. Right here you see I have DALL-E 3 deployed. I have Chat 3.5 Turbo 16K deployed. If this was our enterprise tenant, I could say, hey, let's create a new deployment, and I would have the ability to drop in a 4 GPT or a 32K. I don't have this particular subscription set up to take this model, but let's say for a second we did. I could come in and add GPT-4. Why would I want GPT-4 versus over GPT 3.5, other than the fact that it's newer, right? Yes?
Well, it generally has better results, and it also has a larger context.
Larger context window, much, much better results.
Yeah.
Trained on a lot more parameters, et cetera, right? So I want to be able to use better models, then that's where I deploy those things. Also, these models, they have life cycles to them, right? 3.5 Turbo 16K, I don't know exactly when, actually it says right here.
Yeah.
June 12th it gets retired, right? So now you're set up for this whole world where you have to manage these language models, and you have to be able to service them, retire them, version them, and those kind of things, right? So we know that any application we build on this particular instance, we're going to have to retire shortly, right? So I'm now, in what we call LLM ops, or model management ops. Yes, Drake?
Is there any 3.5 latest, or something like, I don't know, you mean versioning like the YAML file?
As of right now, no. It'd be a nice idea, right? But then it starts to cycle automatically, I think, and that could run into some issues. But you have specifically released things. I think the most recent is Turbo 16K for 3.5. All right, so anyway, one second, I'll come back. I have other things I can do, right? I can list all my models, my data files. I can set quotas. Right now, things are moving towards this idea of provision throughput. If I have a tenant-wide organization, I want to run everything through my common Azure OpenAI instance. I can say, okay, department of this, you have these PTUs. Department of that, you have those PTUs, et cetera, et cetera. But it gives you low-level capability and management of your OpenAI instances. Right? Yep.
Oh, so I wanted to ask about model retirement since you brought it up.
Yep.
It specifically mentions model retirement. I'm assuming for Studio, right? OpenAI Studio?
For Azure OpenAI Studio.
Okay.
But hold that question.
I feel like I think you know what I'm talking about here.
Yeah. Hold that question. Hold that question. All right, I'm going to jump back in. I'm not going to spend any more time on Azure OpenAI. If you want to talk about it maybe after this session, we certainly can. But I'm going to move on to the next thing, right? So, right now, in case you haven't heard, Microsoft really likes this idea of copilots. Have you heard of copilots? A little bit, yeah. A little bit. It's kind of like the new Azure, right? It's the main brand that they're really focusing on, drilling on. And I wish I was a meme guy. I'd have the meme, copilot all of the things, right? Because that's what we're doing right now. We're copiloting all of the things. So Copilot Studio gives us an abstraction above Azure OpenAI, right? It gives us a SaaS-like offering to come in and build these AI intelligent apps, right? So it replaces Power Virtual Agents, and this is where you want to get in right now if you're going to build assistants on the Microsoft platform. You want to start here, the least complex, least costly. Citizen developers, Fusion Team still, it's a platform for building conversational apps, including chatbots, right? We look at the underlying architecture, there's a lot going on there. First of all, I have Microsoft Entra ID, formerly known as
Azure AD.
Azure AD, you guys are cheating. Azure AD, so what does that give me? That gives me security and fine-grained control of things that are happening inside my Copilot ecosystem. It gives me the ability to extend my existing enterprise copilots. It gives me the ability to integrate with Slack and with Flutter and with WhatsApp and Teams and all these other things. You might want to integrate with this thing. I don't know. I probably not, but it's up to you. You have the bot service, which gives you lower level fine-grained control. So if you need to build custom extensions into your Copilot, you can do that. I have the ability to enrich it with Azure OpenAI Search, so I kind of have like an Elasticsearch experience with all of my data, and I can hook it up to custom enterprise things like Dynamics 365, ERP systems and those types of things. And it's all protected by Microsoft Data Loss Protection, right? So I get a lot of capabilities here. I can hook it up to my question and answering, QA Builder, AI Builder, other pre-built connectors. A lot of extensibility, but this is still a SaaS product and it's still kind of a low-code, no-code type of solution, right? It makes it very easy to customize things, but you run into some constraints, right? If you try to go too deep or you try to go outside of this ecosystem, you'll start to step on rakes and you'll hit yourself, okay? So you gotta be careful, right? So let's take a quick look at Copilot Studio, and this is something that you all should be able to do and kind of follow along with me. So if we just do a quick search on Microsoft Copilot Studio, you should be able to come to this splash page, right? Without signing in, you should say, try a demo. All right, let's try this demo. All right, and let's put in a website. So I'm gonna put in my company's website. All right, and you can put in what you want to put in, and I'm going to hit Start Chat, all right, and I'm going to accept the terms and conditions and those kind of things. And I'm going to say, what services? Man. My typing speed goes down by 67% when people watch me type. So the more you watch, the slower I type. So everybody cover their eyes. I promise I'll get this typed right.
It is April 20th.
It's okay. I'm stoned all night. No. Joking. All right. So
that's why you were late.
yeah. I was on time. I got here exactly where I intended to, man. All right. So you can see the result. Man, that's pretty cool. I just said, hey, I want you to index newdesert.com and go through what service you provide. Well, cloud infrastructure services, migration, data, app innovation, business transformation, yada, yada, yada. And I have references, right? So this is really cool. It's giving me references so I know it's not hallucinating. If I want to drill into each one of those points, I certainly can do so, right? Really, really cool. Right. Okay, so I'm going to jump back out of here. So you all can continue to try your demo on Copilot Studio. I'm going to go something a little more lower level with us, right? And I'm going to go into an actual Copilot. So inside this Copilot Studio, I have this timesheet help. Right, as a consultancy, we have to enter our time so we can bill clients. What if I had something where I can, just pick up my phone and say, hey, what, digital assistant's name, so she doesn't like wake up and get in the way of my talk. Enter my time. I worked 40 hours last week, billed evenly across Monday through Friday across all things, right? So this timesheet help will help me do that. I can come in and configure specific flows inside my data. I can say, hey, for specific topics, I want you to behave this way. For example, here's a goodbye topic. Right? Whenever we log off, I want you to follow this flow. Right? Make sure I close all my tasks in Jira for the day. Make sure I've answered all email, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? I have other flows I can do. Let's go back to the topics. Maybe a lesson one. Maybe we have an onboarding, or maybe we have a log off or an offboarding or something like that. I can enrich it with generative AI. In this particular case, when I enrich it with generative AI, what model do I use? Anybody know?
Like what you're defaulting to, you mean?
Yeah, what Copilot Studio uses one model and one model only. What is it?
I don't think it's 3.5.
It is 3.5 16K.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay, that explains the character length then.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, just note that in the back of your head, right? I'm now constrained to a specific model. But this is a SaaS product. I don't have to version models, right? The whole idea of a SaaS is I don't have to worry about versioning and modeling and all those other things. I'm turning most of that over to our friends at Microsoft. They're doing that management for me. They're doing model upgrades and all that for me. I can do actions. These are in preview, and we're going to talk about this here in a little bit as well. I can get analytics on specific flows, but after I'm done with this timesheet helper, I can publish it, and now the timesheet helper is now available to my enterprise. So anybody can use my timesheet helper that is a Copilot Pro or an M365 licensed user inside my organization, right? So Copilot Studio makes it very easy to extend the existing Microsoft Copilot fleet of products Also makes it very easy to build your own custom copilots to help drive, intelligent apps and AI adoption inside your enterprise. But it's kind of an internal focused thing. It's not something you want to turn over to your million customer users or billion customer users sitting in your storefront, right? So I think that's all I want to hit right now on Copilot Studio. I'm also trying to be mindful of time here. Jumping back, let's go to presentation, Copilot Studio. All right, sometimes you need to go deeper, right? This is a SaaS product, and a lot of times we need to go into the PaaS realm of things or into the even lower infrastructure side of things, right? So our PaaS offering is coming into Azure AI Studio, being able to maybe do things other than just GPT 3.5. If I want to do 4, or if I want to use Llama, or I want to use this idea of multi-model inference, right? I can now do that inside Azure AI Studio. So let's jump back here. All right, I'm going to close OpenAI Studio. I'm going to close Copilot. And I'm going to go back to here. So you'll see I have Azure OpenAI stood up. Here's how I got into the Azure OpenAI Studio. Not to confuse things, here is the Azure AI Studio. Notice now we're not saying Azure OpenAI. So if it's the first time through, you'll get this little wizard here. We're just going to hit create later because I've already created this, Cooking Show Magic, and I don't want you guys to sit and watch it for provision resources and those kind of things. So let's go into this Explorer. Inside Explorer, I have this big giant model catalog, right? And look, we see, here's my GPTs, Turbo Instruct, DaVinci for embeddings, I have Mistral, I have Meta. This is one thing I think is really cool about Microsoft, right? When did you start at Microsoft, Mark?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, right? Okay, so this won't be like really awkward or anything like that. We all remember, or the older folks in the room who don't have hair, like we remember when Microsoft didn't play well with others, did they?
Yeah.
Right? And
That's
they were
the old Microsoft.
The old Microsoft. They had a very closed system, right? When Satya took over, things started to evolve. And the thing I love about this one is, look at all these models I have. I have 1,600 models that I can choose to run, right? Wow, a Google model. Are you kidding me? Like, Steve Ballmer's rolling around in his grave right now, isn't he? Except he's not even dead, which makes it really weird, right? Yeah. So I really like this Microsoft feed model. Very small, very fast. We're seeing these models evolve very quickly, right? And one of the things that's interesting about ChatGPT-4 is, even though it's trained on a lot of parameters and it has this really big window, it sometimes still has problems with results and accuracy and whatnot. Why? Because it's trained on general purpose stuff. What if I want a very specific model? What if I want to do my own custom models? What if I want to have a smaller footprint that burns less trees down whenever I run my model, right? These things cost money, they cost CPUs, they cost cycles. So I want to pick the right model for my job, right? What that allows me to do is select a couple of different models, run them in some kind of a model benchmarking, so I can configure a couple of different benchmarks, a couple of different tests. I can figure out, hey, do I want to use Llama? Do I want to use ChatGPT? Do I want to use something else? And I can run it. I can structure a prompt catalog around those kind of things. Do I want to do a social media analysis or an ad summary or real estate agents, file taxes, all kinds of neat things that I can come in and play with. This gives me the ability to now really fine-tune things. I'm no longer just locked into GPT 3.5. I can now start to play with different models. Cool? Get it? All right, cool. All right. So let me jump back out. We're looking at Azure AI Studio. Now we're going to go one level deeper. And this is where we're spending a lot of our time right now as an organization. Moving from chatbots to Skynet. Anybody not know what Skynet is? Yeah? Somebody give a quick 20 seconds. What's Skynet?
Terminator.
Yeah?
It's the AI, AGI, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's the AGI.
That basically took over.
The titanium.
Third world.
Yeah, exactly. Titanium robots with AGI.
It's the goal.
An M50 caliber, yeah, exactly. Right. So, what could go wrong, right? We're here in chatbot world. We move to RAG patterns where we're extending these generative AIs with our own customized data. That gives us, first of all, it gives us grounding, which means I'm, reducing my chances of having hallucination, and I can also get references for my data. I'm also injecting my own specific domain models and those types of things. Copilot's what we just looked at. When we talk about Copilot, we're talking about agents that work side by side. There's a pilot in the seat, he's the captain or she's the captain of the plane. There's a co-pilot there, telling us our longitude, telling us our latitude, telling us our fuel, things we don't necessarily want to think about when we're too tired to look down at the gauges, right? What you don't want to do is turn too much over to the Copilot. That's true with GitHub Copilot, that's true with M365 Copilot, it's true with anything, right? You still remain in command, and that has to be so. But as we start to move on and we start to get better at our models, we start to get better at our training, now we get into fully autonomous things. What if instead of saying, hey, Copilot, enter my timesheet, since I don't have any sick hours last week, it just enters my timesheet for me? I would love that. My boss would hate it, but I would love that. I think that's awesome. So getting to fully autonomous agents and being able to reason about things and to understand so we don't have hallucination and we can actually trust that these things are behaving in a certain way, we need to be able to test them and they need to not be a black box for what we're doing, right? So as we move on to that, we have SDKs that are from Microsoft right now, and I think these are absolutely phenomenal. I spend most of my day just tinkering with Semantic Kernel and Autogen. Anybody familiar with Semantic Kernel? Anybody built anything in Semantic Kernel? Two? What'd you build?
The back computer.
The back computer. Tell me more about that.
I told you about it earlier.
You missed it.
Yeah, you missed both of our talks. We covered a lot.
April 20th,
But you were
The talk's not gonna smoke itself. No. Yeah, sorry, I missed the back computer. Yeah, I'm sorry I missed your talk, guys. Okay, so,
Okay, we're not wizards.
We
Yeah.
streamed it so you can make everybody guess a quadrant, just put it on the big TV.
okay, all right, cool. So when we start building agents inside Semantic Kernel, did you build agents in Semantic Kernel?
No, but I did talk a lot about agents with Autogen.
Okay, so connectors and orchestration and planning and all that other stuff.
Multi-agent.
You talked about multi-agent.
Yeah, no, I talked. My talk was on Autogen.
Cool. Oh yeah, that's neat stuff.
Yeah.
So when we build agents inside Semantic Kernel, it's three main metaphors we want to follow. Plugins, being able to connect to different things, extend the reach of what we can do inside just our normal generative AI. Planners, how do we execute these tasks, right? Do I need to run this task, then this task, then this task, or do I need to reverse the order of things? And personas, I want these things to take on different meanings and characteristics as we run through these semantics. So that gives me the ability to build plugins, right? Here we see the other things, the Copilots of the world, the Copilot Studios of the world. Semantic Kernel gives me that low-level impression where I'm now in control of things. I'm either writing in Java, C# or Python, and I'm building a very specific application with my very specific data. There are a number of reasons why I want to do this. I want more customization, or I'm not fully signed off on Copilot in my enterprise yet. We're working with a company right now that's in the aerospace industry. Because they do military, that is a hard no to do Copilot. But for some reason, if we write custom code in Semantic Kernel, totally okay. So, single agent with Semantic Kernel. When we look at things we built with Semantic Kernel, this is a single agent capability. I'm giving a single persona, I'm giving it some connectors and plugins and capabilities and those kind of things, but I'm not using this whole multi-agent paradigm yet. So we have this thing that we use for organizations that can't build their own Copilot stuff. It's called chat. So if I come in and look at this, I did a particular cooking show magic. I said, hey, what areas are based on AI trends in 2024, and it gave me results. Right? Some of these results come from Bing. Some of these results are coming from just OpenAI itself, and some of them are coming from our SharePoint plugin. So we have a off-the-shelf plugin that allows you to say, hey, I want to ingest documents from SharePoint, and then as the owner of a particular SharePoint collection, you can say, hey, I want these documents to come in or not, right? You have to be an owner of that SharePoint site to be able to ingest documents. But this SharePoint and this Bing plugin fill out that RAG pattern, and they help us ground our truth, but they also help us give our custom specific data. But we're doing all of this with Semantic Kernel. That's our driver. We have different connectors, different adapters, different things that we have going on behind the scenes. This also gives us the ability to connect to our customers' private applications and LLD apps and those type of things. How am I doing on time, Jake?
You started a little late, but you're.
I'm right up against the edge of it, aren't I? Yeah. All right, so let me show you one last thing then. Let's take you didn't do Autogen, right? You just did Autogen.
No, I just talked about it and then how it connected to Autogen.
Okay, so we're going to look at Autogen real quick. Also a Microsoft framework. This is building SDK. You see right here I'm going against GPT-4 Turbo 128K. I'm going against our internal model. I have an API key. I have a version. I'm doing some configuration on how the LLM should behave. I'm giving it a seed value so it knows whether to hit the cache or not. Temperature means how precise do I need it to be versus how creative do I need it to be. If I needed creativity, I would be up around 100. I need precision right now, so I'm down to 0. And I'm going to create this assistant, right? And this assistant's going to do work for me, and the user proxy is kind of like, advocating on my behalf. So the user proxy is going to give work to the agent. The agent's going to come back to the user proxy, and they're going to dialogue back and forth until the user proxy can't resolve things, and then the control comes back out to me. So it's almost like a co-pilot with an assistant. Got it? All right, cool. So I'm going to have to do something very simple, get the sum of all numbers from 1 to 100. Let's run that. And let me just make sure I don't have this already running. And minimize, run again. So you see the trace prompt here, get all sum of numbers from 1 to 100. It's doing some magic right now behind the scenes. It's spinning up the whole agent framework. It's hitting the model underneath the covers.
What's the back end of your APIM?
It is APIM.
Like behind?
Behind APIM, I have a front door, APIM, and then we hit a load balancer.
Like AKS or something?
It is not AKS. These are all just running on, these are just Azure OpenAI instances. There's no compute right now.
Oh.
Yeah. I'll show you the architecture if you want to see it afterwards. Yeah. So it's running a little slower than I thought, actually, which sucks because, okay, there we go. There's the number, right? 550. Well, let's maybe say that's not what I really wanted to do, right? This is a conversational piece, so I can say, you know what, I'm sorry. I want you to output the results to file. Drake, pull the cord when I need to be pulled, okay? All right. I just one more I'll show after this one.
So right now, it's writing code and then running it to get the result?
It is. Let's take a look at that. All right. So the first time it just gave me the results. The second time, the agent said, hey, I need you to do this. All right, sorry, output the results of the file. So the proxy tells the assistant, hey, do it this way. So now the assistant says, hey, here's my Python file. Here's my code. And then I'm going to save that to calculate sum to file pi. And then it's still going to give me the results back, right? So if I go in here, I now have in this directory sum calculate file to pi, right? So let me do one last piece here. I'm going to highlight all this stuff. I'm going to delete it, and we're going to run this all over. This is always fun because the neat thing about AI, especially generative AI, is it is non-deterministic, right? I can run this 9 times and get 9 different kind of results, right? The answer comes back the same, but the way it executes the plan and what it does underneath the covers is different. So I'm going to take this right here, and just to save you guys from watching me type this in this time, 420 and all that, right, Mark? Yeah. So I'm just going to run this, and we'll start all over again here. Let's type exit, and hit play.
That's a really
Probably get 1 or 2 more runs at a time.
Okay, on. So let's watch it just go, right?
Friday was a bad stock day for the stocks, I gotta say. Yeah.
But let's look at this plan real quick. So the first thing it does is says, hey, assistant, back to the user proxy, I want to get today's date, and I'm going to use this date time module. It's telling you what it's going to do semantically, right? Mm-hmm. And it's explaining that out and saying, okay, let's write a Python script to get today's date, and then we'll come back to it after I get this. But here's my plan to do today's date, and then here's the function I want you to use, blah, blah. And then it comes back and says, okay, now we have today's date. Let's calculate the year to date between now and then, all right? And then let's get the results back. Now, I want you to notice up here, when I gave it the prompt, I misspelled Tesla intentionally, right? So there's a cool thing when we're no longer imperatively or declaratively programming, we're now semantically programming. So the AI is able to figure out, hey, this jackass meant Tesla, right? And it's going to go out and get Tesla data instead, and when it's all done, it's going to give me the results of Tesla. Boy, Elon's having a bad year, isn't he? Down 40%, Apple down 11%, Google up 11, Microsoft up 7. Here's a fun one. Let's say, hey, can you add...
And you could just leave the H there.
Can you add, I could have. Yeah. Let's add GE and GM. Let's see if it's able to come back and give us a stock ticker quote for these. This is gonna kind of blow your mind a little bit. Yes,
Yeah, I
sir.
have a question. So
Yep.
even when we set a seed as well as temperature to 0, it's still non-deterministic.
Temperature doesn't matter on non-deterministic. Absolutely, it still is always probability and non-determinism.
Oh, okay.
When I set the seed, it's just going to the cache. So if it sees that exact same prompt, it's going to give the same result back and not burn a token for me.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So look at this. How about that? Blue bloods like General Electric and General Motors outperforming the big bad tech industry right now. But, do NVIDIA, this is my final, come on up, do the switch. Right. Right, all bets are off when we do NVIDIA, so it's gonna be like 79% or something like that, right?
Easy 800, 900.
But this General Electric's really cool, right? They just did a big divestiture, so they went from one company down to 3 companies, and now we have this big thing, right? So now we added NVIDIA. So, but it's kind of cool, right? I'm asking it to do things, and it's writing new code, and it's appending the array, and I can follow this data. The last time I ran this example, it generated 4 different Python scripts. Every time I made the change, it gave me a new Python script. This time it's like, I'm just gonna update the existing Python script. I can come in and see what's happening underneath the covers because I had to save off to the file. So it's,
Is it importing a Yahoo Finance Python
it
package?
did that all on its own. It did that through the plan. It said, hey, you know what, to do that, I'm gonna do this. Sometimes it grabs a different API, which is really weird. You never know how it's gonna behave,
You
right?
gotta specify.
But the idea is, at the end of the day, I'm still going to get the year-to-date results. It's the outcome that matters. It's the output that matters. How it gets there, I'm less concerned about. So that's a paradigm shift for us as developers. We're no longer forcing things through on an imperative declarative path. We're specifying our intent, and we're just kind of letting it go. Right? Notice in this app pie, I didn't write any logic code. All I did was build configuration up and feed it a task. And it did the rest on its own. All right. That's it. That's all I have.
I hope you stick around because I have so many questions and we don't have time to ask them.